Howdy on Wolgox Lives. I think it's time to play a little 7 Days Die. Alright. Doing a little bit of work around my base. I played a bit... Oh, you know what? I think I'm still waiting for yeah. I chewed up a bunch of my bullets to turn them into brass. I mean, I guess I could go out for more door handles, which I might end up doing. Currently, I'm out of bullets. I burned through all my bullets and didn't take enough to complete the mission I was on, and then got killed. I do have some bullets, but yeah, it makes it tricky to not have bullets. So I'm hoping. Yeah, I definitely think once this first batch here gets out, turns into brass here in a second, I'm gonna go down and hunt for some door handles. Boop. So, we did play D&D this week. We just played another round of the what was supposed to be a Halloween one-shot, but we played so little amount of time that it's going to take us at least a couple of more sessions, at least, to complete it. So, but they made it into the mansion this week, and I'll tell you what, I just we've been playing Gloomhaven, which is a fairly difficult game. Like, I don't know what happened when my nephew and I were playing it, because I own the actual game, Gloomhaven, like the physical board game version. And so we try to play the video game version, which is the same game. Like, I'm pretty sure they've got the same quests, the same everything, right? And man, it we struggle. We struggle hardcore to get through the missions on that. It's crazy how much more difficult I find it. So I can only assume that when my nephew and I were playing the board game version, that we weren't playing it correctly. That is all I can figure. We were not playing it correctly, because, man, I will say, I'm pretty sure we were not wasting cards to move, which would make the big, massive difference for sure. So the way Gloomhaven plays is you've got cards, and each character is a different type of character, and so each so you know, they play differently, and but they also are set up differently. So each character has different number of cards they have available, and often those cards are very very different in their makeup. So for example, I play a brute, and the brute is like a warrior, and so this warrior, most of his cards are small movement. Look at that vulture just sitting there in that window. Stupid vulture. Um, Small movement and a little bit of defense, but mostly small area attacks so far. I say so far because you start with a tiny deck of cards for your character, and like I think the brute has 10 cards. Well, I know the brute has 10 cards that he can use, and then but you start with 12, so you have to make a deck. I think it's 12. But you have to make a deck out of those cards of 10 cards, and um and then you can only use those 10 cards that you chose in that particular dungeon, right? And so this is going way more explanation than I wanted to go into. I don't know why I got sidetracked on this. Basically, you play the top half of one card, the bottom half of another card each turn, and so the bottom half of the card is usually some kind of movement, or you use it as movement, because if you need to move and it doesn't have movement on the bottom half of the card, you can use the default move action, which is just the bottom half of the card, but you just say it's worth 2 movement. And so we weren't doing that. And so I think that is a huge thing, because in combat we were doing it, but in between rounds of combat where there were no bad guys on the map, we would just move our tokens to the next door. And so then you don't end up wasting entire turns trying to move to the next room or whatever. Because the maps aren't small. And so it'll be like, kill every bad guy on the map, right? And but then the map is like massive, and so you've only got 10 cards, right? And when you get to the end of those 10 cards, you have to rest. And when you rest, you lose a card permanently for most of the classes. Like the one guy, he plays a wizard character, and the wizard character has the ability to bring back cut through the ashes to do 10% more damage to coal and burnt wood. Okay. He has the ability to bring back his burned cards once, basically during the dungeon. So I don't know why I made that noise, because I had already read that book. And anyways, so yeah, so it's a really tough game, really, really tough. But this takes us to I wanted to bring up Gloomhaven in regards to the D&D, because man, we play with that guy, right? We play with the DM, the other player. He drives us crazy, right? And he totally, man, he totally is afraid to have his character anywhere near combat, and he keeps taking like these high damage classes, but then when he plays them, he tries not to do any damage because he's afraid the bad guys will come for him. And so it's insane. Like, he plays the wizard, but then he does all these moves where his wizard doesn't actually cast any attack spells. Right? Like, what? Like, you should be doing the most damage. I don't understand why you're not doing more damage. Um my warrior and my scoundrel, because I play 2 characters. I don't know why I'm always the guy playing 2 characters, but it seems to happen a lot. Um, are the top of the DPS just consistently. And okay, there's not really DPS in Gloomhaven, but at the end you get a list of who did the most damage, and so oh hey, oh, your head came off with the fire axe. Your head came off with bullets. I just punched you with my knives. So, you gonna come back up and try again? You're gonna get mad and punch that post instead? Oh, you are gonna come back up here after you punch a post a couple times. All right. And so, man, we're playing Gloomhaven. What's he do? He's like, I think I should move my guy back in the other room. And we're like, you're nowhere near even close to the bad guys. What do you mean move back into the other room? You need to stay in this room and do damage. Like, what are you doing? And so then he does the same thing when we're playing D&D. And so he's like, so for example, we're playing, well, I mean, the point of my story, I guess not for an example. So we're playing, and I thought it'd be funny to have, we're in a room with ponds, and so I thought it'd be funny to have the zombies, like, they're dumb, right, because they're zombies, and so they just march forward toward the characters, and so as they're marching toward the characters, they fall into the pond, right, and so because there's a lot of bad guys on the map, because of the way I've designed it, I wanted I expect to be like long hallways and, uh, choke points, so it'd be easier to fight, even though there's a lot of bad guys. But they're just in this big open room. I didn't want to go over there where that bear was. uh, and so I thought it'd be funny. I had to bring the zombies through the pond, and so I'm like, oh well, they splooshed into the pond. And then when the next round came, I'm like, oh, you know what? I'm gonna have the zombies crawling through the pond, disturb the things that are in the pond, and that's where the next round of the game comes from. Because that's what we're doing, is we're doing rounds of zombies. Oh man, that guy is like beating the crap out of me. Oh, I don't have any. I need to get some. Need to get some more first aid packs. And so on the map, we're looking straight down from above on the map, and he's like, "Oh, can I see that guy?" I'm like, "Well, that zombie is in the pond, and the pond, as I described before, is pretty murky and covered in lily pads and frogs and stuff. So no." If you got up to the edge of the pond, you might be able to, take a shot at him, but you can't shoot him from where you're at because that zombie's actually crawling through the muck. And he's like, oh, well, now the zombie's not going to be able to get to him, right? The zombie can't get to him the next turn. It has to crawl through the muck. We've already established that it's crawling through the muck. We've already seen... Ooh. We've already seen a couple of the zombies coming through the muck, and they take extra movement penalty because it's rough terrain basically, and so he should know that it's not getting to him. But in his mind, all he can think is, I don't want that guy. I don't want that guy to get close to my guy. He has the highest, at that point, he had the highest AC out of the 3 players. So he's the least likely to take damage. And so it was just weird. Like, he hadn't been hit yet. And he's just like, I'm going to take my wizard and I'm going to go over in this corner as far away from the pond as possible because I know bad guys are coming from that pond at some points. Like, why didn't you just go up and attack those zombies? Like, you're ranged attacker. Go ranged attack. I don't understand. Like, get up to the edge of that pond and shoot those guys while they're still in the pond. That's... Instead, you're just gonna wait. You're just gonna wait for him to get... Oh, man. 2 zombies jumped out and slammed into me. I don't like it. Anyways, yeah, so that was our D&D this week. They fought a couple of waves in the pond, and then they reached their next short rest, and oh, they got me. And then after the after the short rest, they uh, explored a couple more rooms. They kept rolling the same number because I've just got the loot on random for this one, and they kept rolling a 4. Which can I just put these in here? Yeah. Which meant they kept getting armor upgrades. So I don't know. I was kind of hoping they get some weapon upgrades, but we haven't seen that yet. I think we got a scroll one time, and then every other room they've opened has been an armor upgrade. He didn't use the scroll either. I think he's forgot he's got it, or he decided to put it in his spell book. Even though I thought that was a dumb idea. But what are you going to do, right? Players got to play. Players got to make their decisions and then live with those consequences. That is... My goal as the DM is to let them suffer their own consequences. That's the thing, right? Yeah. Like, I'm putting that in there, but now I'm wondering if that is even a thing that should go in there. But it is. It definitely is. So the other thing I want to talk about is I have finished book 3 of Ash and Sand. Yeah, it is a weird one. I definitely don't understand how it made it on this list of best fantasy series. Because I have definitely read more than 20 fantasy series that were better than this series. Um, could it have been in the top 20? Definitely. Definitely could have been had the author continued with the format of the story from the first book. I really thought the first book was good. However, there were 2 more books after that. And that's not what I want to click on. I want to click on this to see if I have... I do. There we go. Let me get some of this in here. I don't need this. I don't need this. Ooh, I have 125 empty jars. I should go get some water, apparently. So I really liked book 1. Like I said, it was a good view of the 2 main characters, Ruka and Kale. You know what? There's only 1 main character, it turns out. But in the first book, it seems like there's going to be 2, and they are Ruka and Kale. Oh, I still have that coffee in my inventory, too. Is this water? Yes, it is. Uh, so the first book follows Ruka from his boyhood up until he is, I don't know how old he is, but he's an adult who avenges his mother and then goes on a sail and then decides when he comes back, he tells his compatriot that he has decided that they could conquer paradise and bring his people who live in this horrible frozen wasteland a life that he feels that they could probably deserve if he can manage to bring them together to conquer these other people he ran into off page. And so I think I'm going to take my truck and look for a better place to loot doorknobs. Do I still need to loot doorknobs? I don't know. Maybe. And so um I know I did like I did the motel out this way. Maybe I'll hit the gun store here. See if it's respawned yet. Oh, is this a working stiff? I thought it was the clothing store. I don't think it is the clothing store though. Anyways, I need to concentrate on this book. So yeah, so I liked it. It was good. It followed the Ruka, and then Kale. Kale was this fourth prince, and don't worry, I'll get to book 3. Book 3 won't take very long. So I get to this fourth prince, and Kale. Kale is the fourth prince. Like he has 3 older siblings, I guess. I don't really remember any of them being mentioned other than his oldest brother. So, um, so uh, first they start him out in the military, and I thought that was interesting. And um, fix the military. And then when he came back, he fell in love with his princess, and she's not the firstborn or the oldest daughter, and everyone says that she's useless, and they're going to send her home, and then they want to be together, and then his father talks to him about his stint in the military and how it's time for him to go do his training at the monastery. He goes and does the training at the monastery. He finds out he's got superpowers. Why? I don't know. They don't explain where the superpowers come from in these books. They just have them. Like Ruka made a mind palace, and he discovers he can take things from the real world, shove them into the mind palace, and then bring them out later. Or later, he can just make things in the mind palace with mind palace ghosts that he made. So basically, he makes his own servants of the people he remembers, and then puts them to work in his mind palace. It's all in his head, and they do stuff like forge weapons, and then when he needs those weapons, he draws them from his mind palace and hands them out to people. Right? It's crazy. No explanation of why he can do this. No explanation of why Kale can control the elements or astral project himself or anything like that. It just happens. And so that's what Kale discovers in the monastery, is that he has the ability to astral project himself. And then when he gets back, he hooks up with the princess, and then he goes to tell his father that they're in love and that he's going to marry her. And then he finds out that she's secretly, unbeknownst to her or his oldest brother, going to unite. Was supposed to be his oldest brother's wife, who would unite the 2 island nations, the 2 major island nations together, and start his father's envisioned. Oh man, I forgot. I totally forgot. It gets so dumb. It gets so dumb. Totally unite the 2 nations together, and so because that didn't happen, he tells his father, just go ahead and marry her off to his brother. He understands. He loves her, but he understands, and you gotta do what's best for your country. And so they're like, well, we could do that, but you've already screwed things up, so we're gonna have to turn you into a eunuch so that nobody suspects impropriety. And then there's this ambassador guy there from the Continental Empire. I'm just gonna call it the Empire. And he's like, well, instead of doing that, why don't you send him off to the university? Because everyone's welcomed at the university. And the university is on the continent, and so he won't even be here. And it'll take him years to get through his studies, and so then by the time he returns, no one will even remember that they even looked at each other at a party one time. And yeah, and so that's what they do. And he goes off there, and then he comes back with even bigger superpowers. But while he's there, he learns that his home, his island nation, is under attack. And so he gathers an army, and heads off to defend his home, and that's the end of book one. And then in book two is like this weird, let's time skip backwards. And so I think what had happened was I didn't realize that Ruka's story was taking place so far before Kale's story. Not that that would have made any difference, because, like I said, I enjoyed the first book. I enjoyed watching these two characters evolve as characters. Once they got to the end of book one, they stopped. No, that's not true. Ruka got rewritten. He did all the things they did in book one, but that 2 year gap in book two, um, became this time that he spent with Kale's father, and how they became the bestest of friends. Ooh. And and so totally saw you in the shadow from the sun. And so now that they're best of friends, the father wants to finish his planned conquest of, I don't know what just happened there. I always do that. I always try to pull it from here, but it doesn't work. Okay, so now I want to go to this one. And we're going to give you that. And so, yeah, it turns out that the father, this is why it gets so dumb to me, right? So we established Kale did something to disrupt his father's plans, aka hooking up with the princess, in the first book. And so they're gonna, you know, turn him into a eunuch, and then that guy suggests they send him off to the university. In book two, they reveal Kale's father can see the future. And so he he's been using his powers to raise up his kingdom nation, or his island nation, to be more and more powerful by taking advantage of the fact that he can plan based on the future he sees. All right, but he apparently totally didn't see Kale coming at any point. And then later, later he's like, all I can see is a storm is coming, and he can't see Kale at this point because Kale is the storm that's coming. But did he not see Kale before? Like, could he not see that his plans to unite the two nations using his oldest son and this girl is disrupted by Kale? Like, I don't understand how you, like, he didn't have those powers in the first book, or if he did, I missed them. But I don't believe he had them in the first book, and so it's like a tack on. Everything is tacked on. I totally shot that guy's head right off. That was cool. Right there it is. I shot your head off. And and so that's what the whole second book feels like to me. Is like, so we got a story, and we got a story that's going. Ooh, those are valuable. And oh, that is not a thing that I need to put in my inventory. And so what we really, really need to do is we really, really need to rewrite what everybody's doing, why they're doing their things, and just completely change it. And so Ruka goes from wanting to bring his people to this island nation. Now, yes, could Ruka telling this guy he wants to bring his people to conquer this island nation be part of the king's plan? Definitely. Definitely could have been the king's plan, because that's what they say the king's plan was in the second one. Totally, totally believable to me that that could have been why Ruka said those things. But I honestly believe that the plan was, in the first book, was to bring Ruka and Kale versus each other. But then the story just abruptly changed to what it became. And so you have Ruka, who's now changed from this monstrous beast of a man who is barely civilized to becoming completely civilized by the king just out of nowhere. And Oh, I already looted this place, I guess. All right. And so now he's secretly trying to bring civilization to his people. And and so when he gets back, they bring diseases with them, and so a lot of the elderly and children start dying off. Um, and so he needs to do something about that. He decides, and so he's trying to find a cure. Ah, this is what I need right here. I need to hit popping pills for some more first aid kits. And so there's a whole there's a tiny, not a whole section, but there's a few pages dedicated to Ruka trying to find a cure for the diseases, and trying to figure out where diseases come from and stuff, because Ruka's like suddenly this genius scientist guy who is going to bring the world to his level of understanding if he has to kill half of them to do it, right? Um, and so it's such a different version of Ruka than took place in the first book. I was all prepared for the Viking Northlands to, well, they aren't in the north, they're in the south in this book, but the Viking lands, which is basically the wastelands where Ruka lives, to try and conquer this island nation and then have to face off against, you know, Dragon Ball Kale. And instead, instead what we got was Kale's there. Kale's trying to figure out what's going on with this disease. Um, or no, Ruka is. Sorry, Ruka's trying to figure out what's going on with this disease. Kale shows up, sees all the graves from the sick people, thinks that Ruka is just slaughtering all the people he comes across, but really that's not even it. Doesn't ask anybody what's going on. Attacks Ruka with his superpowers. Ruka's like, "Hey, wait, your father's coming. I don't want to hurt you. You don't understand. Like, you might not remember me, but when you were a boy, I was here. I even tried to save your mother from the poison that happened to her." And he's like, "My mother died in an accident." And he's like, "Well, that might have been what they told you, but that's not the truth. Just wait till your father gets here." "No, you must die, invader." And so then his father comes walking in the room and gets caught in the crossfire. And so Kale kills his father, and then that's the end of the father's plan. And so then Ruka's like, "You need to calm down. We can still, try to do what your father wanted." "How? You don't know what my father wanted, you know?" And so then Ruka has to kill Kale to stop him. And so that's the end of book 2. And I'm just like, what is going on? And so then book 3 is even more pointless than book 2 was. Uh, book 3 is basically 3 parts. Part 1, like, Kale ghost in Ruka's head is still there. Now that Ruka has killed Kale, he made or maybe Kale just attached himself. Who knows? Also, where's all the medkits that I came in here for, man? Um, so the first step was making sure that the kingdom wasn't going to rebel against Ruka after the death of the previous king. And so there's a little bit on that. Not a lot, a little bit. And then okay, I liked seeing the beakers, but I really wanted to find some med kits. So yeah, so they do that. It's not a lot. There's not a lot of the book that has anything to do with that. And then they put the oldest son on the throne and let him take over. And then Ruka takes the princess, who's now the queen, back to her people, to try and get them to understand that they need to unite together to fight the Empire who's about to attack. Because the king who could see the future saw the invasion coming. And that's why this whole thing was going down. Couldn't see that his son was going to screw up his plans. Couldn't see that his son was going to kill him. But could see the invasion coming. And so the invasion comes. Ruka spent a bunch of time prepping the Queen's People's Island against the invasion because I guess it was closer. And so that's where the big invasion takes place. The Emperor, right? The Emperor is like the Emperor of China in the book. And so the Emperor goes to the battle. And so while he's at the battle, Ruka gathers up 3 groups of their best troops, sends 2 of the groups out to die to distract the main Empire army, and then charges through with the 3rd group to attack the Emperor, fights his way to the Emperor's, which takes him minimal effort, by the way, fights his way to the Emperor's compound in the middle of the battle, tents and whatnot, and then grabs the Emperor, strangles him, and then declares himself Emperor, and then the battle's over. And I'm like, okay, why did you even allow the invasion to take place if all you had to do was kill the Emperor? Couldn't Ruka have just led like a small commando team in and taken out the Emperor? Because he's so, overpowered with his ability to just get whatever he needs from imagination. And so then, after all that's done, and they've stopped the invasion from the Empire, the monastery, which has played little to nothing to do with any of the story since part of the first book, basically. There's some in the second book where, so there's this big test that Kale had to go through, and it's supposed to be a test of humility, and the trick is they show you a room full of runes, like every brick of the wall has a different set of runes on it, and then they take you into a different room that is the same size with the same number of bricks, and then you're supposed to, from memory, without being able to go back, recreate all the runes. Oh, that guy's moving faster. And so Kale does it by astral projecting himself, right? And he met this guy named, I want to say Ando. Let's call him Ando. So then Ruka has an eidetic memory, so he remembers everything he's ever seen. And so he sees the runes, and then they put him to the test, and so he goes in the other room, and I feel like I have blueberries, so I'm not going to worry about getting those. He goes in the other room and recreates all the runes, because he remembers them, whereas I don't have enough room. What can I throw out? What don't I need? I probably don't need 2 oil. I probably don't need baton parts. Probably could have scrapped them, though. Why are these empty? Why are those empty, but the other things are full? Weird. I don't know. So anyways, so Ruka also met Ando, right? Who's this weird monk. He looks really young, but he's really wise, and like he teaches Ruka how to meditate and help control his mind powers. Now, let me reiterate, Ando met Ruka and helped him learn how to control his powers. Ando helped Kale learn to control his powers. I think Ando met Ruka. I say that, but now I'm not sure. I feel like he had to have. So in book 2, Ruka is at the monastery with Ando. Even if he didn't meet Ando, Ando was there. Ando would have known what was happening. Ando at the end of book 3, the monastery erupts like a volcano, like an actual volcano. And it starts raining down on Ruka's people as Ruka's people are returning to their homeland. And so Ruka is like, what's going on? And then Ando shows up, and Ando's like, ha ha ha, this whole time I've secretly been a god, and I'm experimenting with humans to make humans um, be godlike. Like, I'm trying to find the perfect mixture of human to be new gods. And Ruka's like, why do you need new gods? And then no answer. And so then Ruka and Ghost Kale have to work together in the last 30 pages of the book. The last 30 pages of the third book is when they reveal anything that could be remotely like an actual bad guy in this book series. Um, and I mean, they just kill him with normal weapons and stuff. It's a tough fight. Like, they use a giant bear trap, I think, at one point, and it's just, I don't know. I was so done with the book at this point. Speaking of being done, look what I've done. Here, get out of here. You, get in my inventory. So, yeah. So, Ash and Sand, not one of the greatest book series I've ever read. Really disappointed by books 2 and 3. Because book 1, let's see how these people evolve into the big earth shakers that they become, and set up the plot for book 2. Book 2, they run into each other, but one kills the other, and book 3, we're gonna have an invasion. It's gonna be massive. A massive invasion of islands by a giant empire. And when they get there, the one guy's just gonna kill the emperor, and then basically the book's over. Oh, but we should have some big cataclysm at the end. Oh, I know. I'll make that one weird monk, who definitely seemed like he was more than a person. He's gonna be a god who, even though he was there with Ruka. Oh, that's the thing. He tells Ruka that Ruka and Ruka's people were a mistake that had been made, and that he thought they had wiped them out 1,000 years before. And so he's going to make sure it was done right this time. It's not like you didn't bump into him. Like, what kind of god are you that you can't even tell that this guy is the thing you thought you'd wiped out 1,000 years before? Why? I don't even know. I don't even know. It was such a weird story. Like, I just, these lists and these choices of book that people have made, and I'm just like, why? Why is that your choice? Go read better books. I mean, I'll admit it, all right? I'll tell you. Books are subjective. So people might not like the same books I like. Clearly people don't like the same books I like because the Witcher series is held in such high regard. I just, I feel like stories should have a narrative flow, and and not just be this jumbled together moments of scenes that don't form a cohesive storyline. A cohesive? That's not a word. A cohesive storyline. Oh, that doesn't go in there. That's honey. That goes in medicine. And I feel like a lot of these stories just don't have it. Or if they do, it's just weird. And like, I've started a new book series from that list. Um, and so far it's been okay. I don't think it's as good as the first book of Ash and Sand so far, and I don't like the quadruple time jumps that are happening. It all seems to be following the same character, but at 4 different points in her lifetime, which makes it a bit hard to follow. And there doesn't seem to be any real reason to have done it. Like, we definitely could have start at the beginning of this character's life and then followed it through as the story progressed. Because we literally have... Honestly, they might not all be the same character. They all have the same name, is the problem. And so I don't see how they aren't the same character. But I also think that 2 of the characters are experiencing the same moment, but from different locations. Which leaves me really confused as to why they're all called... They all appear to be the same person, though. Like, the names of... The names that are given and references they make all seem like the same person, but I don't understand how one person gets to be at 2 different places during the apocalypse, living 2 different lives. Oh no, you know what? I'm sorry. I take it back. I take it back. I thought they were at the same place. I just remembered that the apocalypse that the one character was seeing was a single city, and the apocalypse that the other character is seeing is the entire continent. Speaking of seeing, what am I looking at? Oh, that that chest on the side of that mountain made it look like a volcano to me. It looks like lava pouring down off the top of that mountain, and I didn't think that that was a thing in this game. All right, but with that, I've got to go. So, beware of the small things, lean into the light. I'll talk to you later.